Hello everybody, it's long time no see. Today in our studio we got the Isonzo. So it's not a little over a week ago, I happened to watch a video showing the behavioral disorders of some soldiers who survived the First World War. Absently scrolling through the most popular posts on Reddit, Facebook and Twitter. Okay, I'm lying, I'm not using Facebook. Somewhat distressing, the images that as strong as a punch in the stomach testify to devastating effects of the post-traumatic stress disorder caused by the brutality of the conflict. Precisely the brutality of the Great War inspired novels such as Nothing New, as Western formed by Eric Maria Remarque and the Hollywood blockbusters among 1917 stands out with ignorance. Directed by the Sam Mendes. There are software houses like the Blackmail Games that have even given life to a video game franchise based on the clashes that from 1914 to 1918 involved the whole world. The tactical shooter of the German game players the opportunity to fight on the Western Front in Verdun and the East Front in Tannenberg, who thus experienced in an interactive first person from the hard life a soldier called to sacrifice themselves their homeland. And since there is no two without three, with Isonzo Technic developers have the thought of sharing out a dedicated to be the battle of the First World War, which this time closely concerns our country. The heroes and antagonists who over 100 years ago faced each other openly the mountainous borders of northern Italy. The conflict between the Kingdom of Italy and the Austro-Hungarian Empire undoubtedly represented one of the key moments of the First World War. It is therefore not surprising that Blackmail Games has decided to focus its efforts on the Italian side. Isonzo can be seen with a sort of spin-off focused on the high seas war that raged in the Alps from 1915 to 1918, which had a protagonist, the Italian army led by General Luigi Cadorna and the Austro-Hungarian army under controls of Svetozar Borojevic von Breucha. The tactical shooter of the German team thus evokes the main battles that took place in the Isonzo and Alpine territory, including the bloody offense called the Strexophon and taking of Gorizia, without getting the clashes of the karst and in Dolomite areas. The offensive and defensive maneuvers of the two sides involve find an outlet of the offensive mode. The only one currently available is which a faction has the task of conquering specific areas and detonating some sensitive target, while the opposite one must disarm the bombs and prevent the enemy to take control of the certain points of interest. A bit like in the Race, the Conquest mode, the Battlefield series, the attacking team has a certain amount of re-entry tickets that are resolved after completing their offensive tasks. Passing in effect to the next battle for object to be conquered or blown up in the air, the opponents committed again to stop the advance of the enemies by making sure that recon touch zero. The 6 maps available capable of hosting a maximum of 4 players in a total. Instead, define the role between the attackers and defenders, obviously reflecting the historical reality of the facts, so that Italian who besides Gorizia and not the Austro-Hungarians. Isonzo proposed to all intents and purposes the virtual war of attitude made of styles overturning and continuous push and pull between the parties involved that ignite multiplayer sessions and customized games, with the latter allowing you to set different parameters that range from activating friendly fire to choosing in a battlefield. In the absence of the real users, the soldiers led by artificial intelligence come into play, whose behavior has actually left me a bit dumbfounded, as they take alternative team spirit in healing the player with a total daze that leads them to make beautiful figures away from the hotspots of fire rides. This happens even by setting the level of difficulty applied to the boats of the maximum, which are also capable of putting 3 consecutive headshots and at the same time of essentially missing the target a few meters away even if the opponent is turned from behind. In the days preceding the publication of the review, the bots gave me the opportunity to witness things that you shooter fans could not imagine by virtue of sparsely populated sessions despite the activation of the crossplay, but likely with the releases of the game the servers will filled with users finally sending artificial intelligence on the bench. For those who have the opportunity to approach the Blackmail players war stunners, Isonzo could write his seam distinctly with sublingual news regarding the actual gaming experience. Undoubtedly, the foundations of the gunplay have not undergone any shaking whatsoever, so much so one you can distinctly feel the same interaction in the moments of the soldiers, and they lack durability, which translates into a tremendously low time to kill where more often than not even a revolver shot is most enough to send an enemy to the crater. We are still in the presence of the product aimed in a narrow niche of enthusiasts, and even more in the when it's compared with the not too nosy audience that loves to delight in tactical shooters with a historical and modern setting. However, Isonzo presents tangible differences in the class system clearly adopted for the occasion, each which loads of weapons, passive bonus, and accessories that define its unequivocal role of battlefield, which is followed to the latter can be decisive, during the bloody skirmers taking the place of the Italian front. Certainly the Alpine cannot be missing carry out of the ask recognize that the trusty binoculars with which marks the remake enemies and hostile options, while the engineer car is skillfully built fortification, such as section of barbed wire and shelters made from the sandbags, and if its spinner is equipped with a sniper rifle with which two shot from the distance, the attacker can change with his head down and with indomitable courage after drawing from the flat risk inhibits the consumption of stamina during the run. Choosing instead to play in the role of the officer equivalent to leading your faction, staying often and willingly the real actively indicating the offensive-defensive maneuvers to be followed by allied compromise the requiring whole series of help from above, such as bombings, clouds of toxic gas, and reconnaissance plans, which can overturn slim sleeve despite situation often local moments. So here, Isonzo gave me a clear impression of being smaller scale with the World War I themed version of Hell Let Loose, clearly with the obvious differences regarding the structure that match their development, even if after all always talk about too deliberately Putin gaming experience, not exactly ideal for the players accustomed for the team management rhymes Call of Duty. So the horrors of war, like Verdun and Tannenberg, even the third-person series is not that kind of shooter to end back down when it comes to shooting the most brutal face of the Great Wall. Lifeless bodies, sliced limbs, and desperate screams and recruiting elements in every multiplayer game or against the boss, unless you activate the anti-violence filter and spare yourself rather macabre scenes. As the video game representation of World War I, it must be that said that Isonzo is doing quite well, not only in terms of the gameplay, but also on the scientific and sound sides. Through the respect, there is certain redundancy of the sum repeated by the soldiers during the course of the battles. They are not horrors of the war, unfortunately, also the errors of the developments who have never been flawless in equal measure, the technical scooter properly, a flaw that thinks afflicts the previous work on the German software house. That scary graphic, it's not one of the expected in Kai's sales line. There is another strength of the OpenAA project, but its fair amount of bugs, glitches present in the final build. Still, has not too positive impact on the yield visual, despite the usual day one patching having fixed some of the most obvious defects. Leaving aside the anatomically impossible pose of lifeless bodies, rather common problem in shooters, certain animations and ragdoll of soldiers appear clumsy in general careers. The frame rate, on the other hand, dances with some very efficient drops, which is when accompanied by annoying tearing, a quantity everly marked by activating the release of the frames and options that incredibly slightly improves the technical performance that is not faultless. So the verdict is Isonzo, the faces of the panorama, worldwide worst team tactical shooters with an air authority and historical fidelity, following the path indicated by Blackmail Games, and with Verdun and Tannenberg, from the which he inherited roughly the same strengthness and weakness. The Screamers, when the Italian from Focus, is good vertically that evokes his empathies, but the key moments of the high seas were the Italians and Austro-Hungarians, by the flaws from a technical point of view representation a bit caparetta of German development team skill in creating with authentic scenery, uniforms, firebrands, and not very careful in gathering granting performance like the rocks that cover the slopes of the Dolomites. Finally, it should be remembered that Isonzo is not a product from mass or particularly rich in the content. So thank you for watching, don't forget to comment and subscribe, peace.